Today, we're beginning our investigation on who fired the first shot at Lexington Green, the Battle of Lexington and Concord, the event that set in motion the American War for Independence. Yesterday, we learned about the events that led to the increased tensions over the years between the British government, Parliament, and the American colonists. Today, you are a historical detective trying to uncover who fired the first shot at Lexington Green on April 19, 1775. Was it the British or the colonists? This was the first battle of the Revolutionary War, so whoever is blamed could be responsible for the revolution. Your clues are historical documents written at the time of the event. You will read and discuss as you investigate the event. At the end, you will share your interpretation or argument about who fired the first shot in writing. You will also explain clues that led you to this argument. So I want to remind you, you have a document, the I-read document, and we already looked at this once before with the Middle Passage, African slave trade. We looked at comparing the textbook and primary sources, and we're going to use the same document here to explore these two documents, one from a British lieutenant and one from the Minutemen, who were both at Lexington Green, who they say who fired the first shot at Lexington Green. So again, we are just with this investigation going to focus on the first three, the I, R, and E of I-read, identifying the author's argument in response to the historical question, reading each paragraph and asking about the author's main idea, and then examining the author's reliability. And we're going to look at the I and the R today. I'm going to model that again, starting with the diary of Lieutenant Barker. Okay, so let's start by looking at Barker's diary. So I want to remind you, every time that we have a document, I will provide a area of source information. We'll say source information. It might say head note at the top, but there will be some background information that will help you better understand the source of the document. Where it came from, and the purpose that it served. So the first thing we always want to do in the I-read strategy is identifying the author's argument in response to a historical question. And so if we go back and look, we are looking for which side is the author on, and how would the author respond to the historical question. And again, remember the question is, who fired the first shot at Lexington Green that started the American Revolution? So if we look at this, we have Barker's diary. Let's read the head note. Lieutenant John Barker was part of one group of British soldiers who were sent to destroy weapons the colonists had destroyed. Here he describes what happened when the British soldiers marched into the town of Lexington on their way to destroy these weapons. We also have at the bottom exactly the source where it came from. This was excerpted, adapted from the diary of Lieutenant John Barker, an officer in the British Army, April 19th, 1779. So, okay, up in the I area, I obviously know that this is from the British perspective. This person is a lieutenant in the British Army. So it tells me that it was written from an officer in the British Army, and it makes me think that his perspective will be different than American colonists. I also notice that this is a diary of an official. Diaries of officials are often read by others, so he may have written with the knowledge that someone else will read it. But we also put into question, basic things. Diaries typically private. It could have been read by someone else. Sometimes, actually, in the past, they used these things in court. And it was also written the same day that the event occurred. So after making sure I notice all those things, we're going to start with just the I, and we're going to identify the author's argument in response to the historical question, which side is the author on, and how would the author respond to the historical question. Well, because he's a British soldier, officer in the army, I will imagine, since he was sent off to destroy the armaments of the colonists, that he's probably going to say that He supports the British, and he will claim that the colonists or Minutemen fired the first shots in the American Revolution. So right at the top there, you should write that in. Now, the next step in the I read process is to read each paragraph and ask about the author's main idea. What is the author describing in the paragraph? What is the main idea of this paragraph? Does this main idea relate to the historical question, and how? So if we go back to Barker's diary, we're going to read each one and summarize here in these boxes the basic information that they provide. So the first one, the 19th, he's relaying that's the date. At 2 o'clock in the morning, we began our march by wading through a river that came up to our waists. After going a few miles, we came to a town called Lexington. We heard there were hundreds of people gathered there who planned to go against us. At 5 o'clock, we arrived and saw a number of people, between 200 and 300, formed in a field called Lexington Green in the middle of the town. Now, what I notice here is that he says, we heard there were hundreds of people gathered there who planned to oppose us. So he's saying that the wording here makes it sound as though the colonists were the aggressors or the attackers, that there were many colonists gathered. So I would underline this section, there were hundreds there gathered who planned to go against us. And then I also underlined and saw a number of people between 200 and 300 formed in a field called Lexington Green in the middle of the town. Over on the side here, I'm going to note that Barker believes that hundreds of colonists were forming and finds apparently 200 to 300 colonists waiting for them at Lexington who planned to attack them. Okay. So if we look at I read again, does this main idea relate to the historical question? Yes, he is talking about Lexington Green, talking about the colonists, the Minutemen who met them at the battlefield. So the next paragraph. We continued marching, keeping prepared against an attack, though without intending to attack them. Now, again, it says they're keeping prepared against an attack, though without intending to attack them. So again, he makes a claim, and the words he's using says they had no intention of firing or attacking the Minutemen. They were just doing their job, going to collect the armaments. So again, there's several phrases that make the British troops look good, like the victims and the colonists were the aggressors again. He continues, on our coming near, they fired 1 or 2 shots. As soon as that happened, our men, without any orders, rushed in upon them, fired, and put them to fight. Put them to fight just means attacked. We regrouped, but with some difficulty because our men were so wild they could hear no orders. So again, some things come to mind. This makes me wonder if the author is trying to make himself and his soldiers look good by using this terminology, making the colonists look bad compared to the British soldiers. Is an officer in the British Army reliable? That's more than just an enlisted man. What would a colonist say in this event? It's going through my mind as I'm reading this British interpretation. Everyone's going to have a different perspective, but I'm thinking I'm going to have to compare it to other sources. Can't just use a source that's historically inaccurate. So, and also to get a better trustworthiness of the source in general. I am also remembering that this is an official's diary, so I'm wondering if he's writing this all down in a way to make himself and his soldiers look good. And we'll come back to that too. But on the side here, just to kind of summarize the main ideas, he says, summarize that when the British approached, the colonists opened fire, and they weren't provoked. They were not attacked. So the British approached, and the colonists opened fire. The British returned fire, but the British were the ones who were attacked first. The colonists opened fire on them. So now that we've done the I and the R for Barker's diary, the British perspective, what I want you to do um, is to do the I and the R steps for the Minuteman statement. Remember, you want to look at the acronym guide you have, the IREAD, the I, the R, and the E, and make sure, so we're doing the I and the R right now, and you're doing these steps. So follow these as you are completing this step with the Minuteman statement. Take a few minutes to do that.